Hello and welcome to my intro to my text RPG written in C Sharp for a C Sharp project. I'll go ahead and start by going through some of the important files and functions and then giving a little intro of what I have so far. So this game is created using C Sharp and .NET using Windows Forms as a basis for creating a user interface. So the first file here I have has our game form class, which creates the window that the user will be playing in. We have a few things. We'll be instancing a game manager, which I'll introduce later. We have some of the basic properties for the window. We have an input box where the player will be inputting their text, a little panel for a border around that panel. We have a text box for the game output, where all the important information will be displayed for the game. A couple of little details here to make sure that you can only select within the input box for the player. And we have down here some input handling for the keys that are currently used. Mainly you'll be using enter to enter the input for the player. And then there is some functionality later on where I use the up and down key, which I'll explain later. And lastly, I have the main function for running the program. So this is all in C Sharp's in C Sharp written. So been learning the syntax for C Sharp classes. Uh, it's a very strict sort of syntax, not very loose like some other things like JavaScript and whatnot. So making sure you always have your semicolons at the end of lines and whatnot, and have some important instancing like this using to refer to objects that is currently being worked on. So yeah, looks like we have some debug lines here using the Windows diagnostic or system diagnostics library for checking some things. Of course, we're using the drawing and Windows Forms libraries for drawing the window. The next important class I have here is the display class, which is what we use to update the current UI, as well as for formatting all of the display lines that will be received from the screen class that I'll show later. And then some helper functions, mainly this one to wrap text, so that if a text line is too long, it gets split onto the next line so that we don't have any sort of overflow on the screen. All right, here is the game manager class, which is our kind of central hub for keeping track of the game information. Holds all the essential game data and importantly the current screen as well as the previous screen for some purposes. So the current screen is the one that will currently be displayed. The previous one is tracked in case we need to return to the previous screen. It keeps track of the last user input, and there'll be a system message that can be displayed as well. We're using, this is something that I've learned a little bit in this project of instancing. So I have an instance of this game manager to make sure that the program is all using this particular instance in all the various files to make sure that I'm using consistently the same game manager the whole time. So this is the code for creating an instance of the game manager. We have the game output, which is the text box that the information will be displayed in. We have a location cache, which will be used later on for our location screens. And we also create the player, which is the player object, which is a player class, which I'll introduce later, to keep track of the player's stats and information. So there's some initialization here. We have then we have a get location screen for handling some of the location screen objects to load up the correct one based off of the string that is being entered. Go into more detail with the location screen. I want to adjust this so I don't have to input each location manually here. So that's something to do in the future. We have the set screen function, which is used to load in a new screen and update the display to show everything from that screen in the display area. We have the process input, which will track what the last user's input was in order to keep track of that, as well as send the message to the screen that's currently showed to handle the input as each screen individually will do. And then last we have an update display here, which is just to run the display update function to refresh any changes that are made. So the game manager is that central hub, and then we got the screen object, which is a very important parent object for a lot of what's going on in the game. So the way I have it set up is whatever you have visible in the game area is based off this screen. So the screen specifically will have a display, which sets a majority of what is visible in the window, as well as a dictionary of different actions that can be taken on the screen that will activate whenever whenever the user enters input. So this class is abstract. I have different categories of screen that will be derived from this main screen, which will each have their own unique qualities and information they track. So for example, I have menu screens, which display different menu options for the player, as well as just general information. Like I have a character menu that displays the character's information. I have location screens, which keep track of the location the player is in and has all the connected locations, any NPCs that are there, as well as is the screen that you will be launching combat from. And then I have NPC screens, which keep track of NPCs and their dialogue options, and in the future, any sort of shopping that will be available with them or quests. And then later on, I haven't gotten that far into the project yet, but there will be the combat screen, which is where all the battle will take place in the game. So, all the screens have this display, which is always going to be 20 strings because that's the size I have to work with, and then the actions dictionary for each of the options, input options the player can do. So now we'll go into some of the different kinds of screens, go into a little more detail there. So first I have the location screen. So a lot of the game is going to take place on the location screens. It is from the location screen that you'll be able to view your character, and also from the location screen that will let you to travel to different locations, speak to different NPCs, and to launch combat. So the location is a pretty central screen to what's going to be happening in the game. And each one will have its name, description, the NPCs that are located at the location, and any connected locations as well. I have the code here to create the lines of like the basic layout for any location screen, adding their correct borders and categories, and then the loops for adding in the specific details based off of the location that you can create. So, for example, I'll show what a specific location looks like here. This is a town square location, and you will add a set of connected locations to it to keep track of those, as well as all the NPCs and a description. And then the location screen's initialization will take information from whatever locations you create and dynamically fill up the screen when those screens are loaded. So So that's kind of how the location screen is. So currently I have the look for trouble, which is what will initialize combat. The travel option. So these are the inputs. Sorry, these are the inputs of what the player can enter, and so these are all added to the input uh, dictionary. Uh, so I have the look for trouble, which starts combat. Travel, which will take you to a connected location. The character menu, which will open up the character menu, and then the NPC command to pull up a NPC. So we'll move on to the NPC screen here. It's got a lot of similarities to location screens, so it's got a lot of setup for the format for the screen, and then it adds in information dynamically based off the specific NPC that you create. And the main options here are different dialogue options for now, which will give you more information from the character, from the NPC, and then the option to leave and return to the location you were just at. So example of an NPC here is Ned Farley. You can add different dialogue options and then the responses to those options, as well as a description. And in the future, I'll be adding an inventory for shops and whatnot as well as quest details. So those are two of the big screens that'll be going on. I haven't implemented the combat screen yet. That's something to do future in this project, but then I have some menu screens, which I have the main menu, which is just a simple one to display your options, and the simple input options here. And then I have the character menu, which is a little more complex, shows a lot of information about the character. I'll actually explain this a little bit better when I just show the game in general. So, and then I also have the player class that I created to keep track of all the player stats and to uh, keep those all saved for the duration of the game. Alright, I'll go ahead and boot up the game now just to show a little example of how it runs. Okay, so this is the main menu. So all of the display, so basically any screen will have a display, which is these 20 lines here. And then I have this bottom 3 lines reserved for showing the last input you entered and a message from the system, such as like a warning. I don't know if I have one on the main menu here yet, but so the player simply enters in the input for what they want to do. For this main menu, we'll go and press 1 to start the game. And then that will put you into the first location. So you got the description, the NPCs that are here, the locations, and then the options of what you can enter in. We'll go ahead and show an NPC here. So NPC 1 to talk to Ned Farley. It'll have a description of the character, their starting message, and then dialogue options. So if you enter the dialogue option, they'll give you a response based off the question. Currently, that's all the NPCs do. There'll be more in that later. There'll be more added in later. And then we have different locations, so I can go ahead and travel to a location like the Forest Glade by choosing the number. Here has its own description, its own NPCs. Talk to Tom Brightwood. Have any goods for sale? Lots of things that aren't actually there yet. Okay. So that's the basic. Basically, a lot of the game will be going through here, and then from each location, you'll be able to enter LFT look for trouble to start up combat, which the enemies you will encounter will be based off of the location you are in. And you can find enemies, look for trouble anywhere, including in towns and whatnot. So this will always be an option. And then last thing to show off here that I have so far is the character menu. The character menu shows all of your important stats, such as experience, hit points, experience to next level. It has your main stats here, as well as points you can spend. This is another function that I added in currently. So as you level up, you'll get points you can spend. You can spend points by doing spend, and then the first letter of the stat you want to spend on. So I'll add some brawniness. Add 3 of my 5 points there. And then it will automatically update any of the other information that is necessary. So for example, if I add some mysticisms, you will get some more energy. Goes up to 44 there, and then the points will count down. And then once combat is implemented, you'll have a variety of abilities you can use. And so I have a little preview of the abilities that are available to you. I've filled them in with some basic stuff here, but from here you can use the up or down arrow to scroll through your lists of maneuvers and strikes to get a better idea of what you have available to you without having to open up the whole skill tree, which will also be implemented later. And with that, this is also the place where you will quit or save and quit. I don't actually have saving implemented yet, but once that is done, you'll be able to save and quit from this character menu as well. So that wraps up what I have done so far in this text RPG project. It's been a lot of fun putting this together, definitely getting lots of practice with C# and classes, and been enjoying learning all of that. So uh, I will try and get a version of this functioning at some point that can be shared with others. Probably create a video or something at some point with information on that, as well as updates on the game in general. So thank you very much, and wish you all some happy coding.